this team gets off to slow starts all the time.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know.
Oh,
Like
there we go.
I,
There we go.
I,
There's the answer.
I mean, I've watched basically every minute that they've played for the last 18 seasons. The team's been pretty good for the last 4 years, right? Like
Yeah.
it's lost to the eventual Stanley Cup champion, Colorado in round three and 22, and Vegas in round two and 23, and then in the final to Florida the last 2 years. They've had extended runs. They've won 9 playoff series in the last 4 years. They've had deep runs. They Some of the lack of success the last couple of years is they've had a lower shooting percentage out of the gate, right? Like they're just not scoring goals. Got 15 goals in 6 games. I thought they played pretty well against Vancouver in the second game of the year at home. And I don't like their game in any of the 4 road games so far in this trip. It's a 5 game roadie. I mean, Stuart Skinner stole them a game against the New York Rangers. I don't have that. Like, I don't have the answer for you. I got some theories as to why they're being challenged to transition the puck in the back end because they missed Jake Wallman, but every team in the league has 1 or 2 guys out, so you got to be able to overcome that.
Yeah.
So it like you take a look. What was it? 2-9-1 a couple of years ago, and then Jay Woodcroft got the win in Seattle, and that was the last game he coached. They made the coaching change. Last year, they lost their first 3 games of the year at home. Actually, needed overtime in the 4th game, and there were moments where they could have beaten the Islanders or the game against New Jersey. They had a decent start in the game. They were not very good against Detroit yesterday. But to answer your question, I'd like to me, it's a combination of factors. It's not the same thing year after year.
Does it have anything to do with roster churn year over year as they try to manage a front loaded roster?
Like Darren, you get this. You both do. One of the things, I mean, there's a lot of different forwards, and they're missing a huge part of their team, and that's Zach Hyman.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and again, it's going to come across like an excuse, but from the moment that he got hurt against Dallas in Game 4 last year, the Oilers were a different team. I mean, the guy scored 70 goals the year before, 54 in the regular season, 16 in the playoffs. He had, this is a trivia question you get most people on. Which active player in the National Hockey League has scored the most goals in a single playoffs? And it's Zach Hyman with 16. And, he's their net front on their power play. He can actually drive a second line. I mean, you watched Edmonton and Vegas, and I would not have predicted the Oilers to have won that series in 5 games. And they had a couple games where they were infinitely the better team in that series, which frankly surprised me a little. Like, you lose a series in 6 or 7, you go a bounce here or whatever, but you beat a team in 4 or 5. Usually you beat them. And they really haven't been the same team since Hyman got hurt in game number 4, and they're not going to have him back until at least November the 1st. So you talk about roster churn. There's a guy that they have that's out, and then they also, it's going to sound
They had a couple
funny,
of kids in there that they're fitting in.
Well, yeah, and I think Savoy's I kind of feel bad for him because I think he's played okay. Mm-hmm. In the Howard's case, it really is. This is his first taste of it, and we'll see what happens when Hyman comes back from the injury. Because that might be an obvious move to get Howard some more time down in the minors. So I think Savoy's ready to play, but he's another one that hasn't had any puck luck around, and he's moved all over the lineup. But you talk about roster churn. They've used an unbelievable amount of forward line combinations to start the year. They've been pretty consistent on defense, and they had some challenges transitioning the puck on the D. But I would tell you that they even miss a guy like Corey Perry. Corey Perry was a surprise to be as effective as he was, but it wasn't just what he contributed offensively. It was his gamesmanship that he had when there was a lull in the team's games. Last year, I'll give you an example. I started the year 0-3. They're playing Philadelphia. Couturier wipes out Stu Skinner. Troy Stetcher fights him. And then Perry picks a fight as well. Right? And got the fans in the game and got Edmonton back in the game and emotionally engaged. And, they don't I mean, they went out and signed Trent Frederick, who's coming off that high ankle sprain, and it's not his fault, but it becomes his problem. He's a guy that's going to have to at times try to change a little bit of the energy in the building, and I just they haven't had a lot going early. They're struggling a bit to move the puck up the ice with a couple of their defense pairings, and then the one defense pairing that does have a 62% expected goals for, the guy on the right side of that defense playing 25 minutes a game. He's a guy that is really struggling to complete his offensive game out. Not to mention managing the puck in the neutral ice.
Yeah, you're obviously talking about Darnell.
Well, Evan Bouchard's playing 25 a game.
Okay.
On the right side, Darnell, as you know, is a lefty.
But Darnell and Evan have certainly struggled on this trip.
Yes. I think Wallman's close, and I think Wallman will play with Darnell. Wallman took the pregame warm-up yesterday in Detroit. Bottom line here is nobody should be happy with this. The owners, and here's my theory, and you guys might think I'm out to lunch, but when the team wasn't very good, I didn't you got to realize that they were a young rebuilding team, and maybe the rebuild took too long and all that, but you got to realize what you had, right? Well, this is a pretty good team on paper, and it doesn't need me to say that. I look to the work of a guy like Dom Lucian with the Athletic, who does some really good work in terms of player rating cards and what teams should be. Now, part of that was factoring in Wallman on defense and Hyman with an inevitable return when he comes back from the injury. But I don't think this team has performed anywhere near to the level it's capable of on this road trip. They were okay in the 2 home games, but the 4-game road trip has been poor, and they're going to have to find a way to dig out of it tomorrow in Ottawa.
So maybe we buried the lead. Connor hasn't scored in 6 games.
Connor hasn't scored in 12 going back to last year, in the regular season. It's an extended regular season drought.
Yeah, I take a look at how the season concluded last year, Darren, and they didn't have McDavid and Draisaitl in any to both play any of the final 14 games. So I kind of just threw those, and that's what sunk their power play from 25.5% to 23.5%, and a bunch of those games neither of them played. So I do know this because I think there's a lot of good teams in the West. Obviously, in the Pacific, Vegas is consistently a good team and driven, and will look to every possible mechanism to improve their team. And I think Edmonton has gotten in the game, understand Bowman, in terms of, increased dollars spent in manpower and European scouting, NCAA scouting, development models, that sort of stuff, where I think Vegas had a bit of an edge. And then in terms of procurement of players, it's there's no secret. And I'm not saying this just because I'm on with you, Darren, but John knows this. The guy I wanted when Pete Chiarelli was relieved of his duties, the person I wanted to be the GM was Kelly McCrimmon.
Yeah, you've been constant in that.
Yeah, he was right, but Vegas correctly realizing that, and I thought Chris McFarland was going to be good too in Colorado. So of the up and coming guys that were out there, I thought, and they were based in the West, which for me was important as well. So I think Edmonton's gotten there. I think Edmonton and Vegas have really good teams. The others just haven't played on that level yet. They played pretty well against Vancouver in the second year. I don't know what to think of LA in the Pacific. I'm not quite convinced they're as good as they were last year. I think Anaheim's going to be better. They'll be better coached for sure. Vancouver, we'll see on Vancouver. I think San Jose is going to have some problems, and then I think Calgary is going to have to make a hard decision. Did I miss somebody in the Pacific?
I think Calgary's already made their decisions, Bob.